Hello, friends. It's Chapo. But suffice to say, every politician and media figure who boosted rhetoric about grooming, drag queen story hour, and slandered gay people as pedophiles, they do it because they think it'll gain them money, clout, and political power. But also because they know it will lead to atrocities exactly like what happened in Colorado Springs yesterday. We know who these people are and what they want. They want gay and trans people to disappear from our society. And to achieve that goal, they will use whatever means are at their disposal to dehumanize, slander, and legislate against them to make this country a more brutal and ignorant place towards LGBTQ people and force them from the public sphere. They have mostly failed in this regard, but if they can't achieve this goal through elections, they are more than happy to fall back on simply reducing the number of gay and trans people who are alive. So rather than focus too much on these cowards and the monsters they inspire to do their killing for them, I want to instead focus on something I was most struck by in the media coverage of this horror, which are the parents of one of the victims of the Q nightclub shooting, a trans man named Daniel Aston. They're a couple, Sabrina and Jeff Aston from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who moved to Colorado Springs, and later their son Daniel followed them there and found a life and community there with them, centered around Club Q, where he worked as a bartender. Now, what struck me was both their incredible dignity and strength in the face of the murder of their son, but also the fact that they knew their son was trans from the time he was 4 years old and loved and supported him for his entire life. They always knew who their son was and never doubted it. And what I'm stuck with is that this is exactly what these people, and I'm not even going to speak their names anymore, you know who they are, want to make impossible for queer and trans people. Having parents that love you, friends, a job, and a life. Their goal is to take that away from you, and they'll do anything to make it happen. So it's the duty of all of us, the majority of decent people in this country, to stop them, to fight this evil. And I'm not talking about banning someone's social media account. I'll just leave it there for now and end this train of thought for whatever it's worth by sending my love and support to Colorado Springs and everyone else who feels sadness and anger this morning and today. Okay. Pause. Try to move on from this, but I guess I'll begin today with the footy. The World Cup is going on. News continues. Life goes on. Tough segue, and I'm sorry for this, but
I have a transition.
Okay.
Okay, check this out. Seems like everyone today is buying slaves, but it also seems like the Qatar soccer team should have bought some soccer playing slaves.
Yes,
nailed it.
Well, thank you, Felix.
Got you
guys
guys
so much for that.
All right, this is a B-side I was working on, if you guys want to hear it.
Yes.
Okay. It seems like everyone is buried alive in the holidays. But it also seems like several Southeast Asians are buried alive in the soccer stadium where Qatar's soccer team will bury their wives alive after they lose more games because they're not very good and they have slaves. They're going to kill their wives.
This is this is some Orientalism on your part, Felix. It's
I'm
not
sorry.
a good look.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll tell you who's not doing Orientalism. He's the president of FIFA. I swear to God, I learned this today. The president of FIFA is a guy named Gianni Infantino.
Yeah, Johnny Baby.
Johnny Baby.
Hey, Johnny Baby.
So yeah, he did a Cuomo thing. I think this
Yes,
is just
he
something
did.
that like all Italians do when they're in positions of power. I think the Medicis did this. When they would get yelled at, they would do this. They would be like, I have the plague.
Yeah, Machiavelli's The Prince has a whole chapter about this, about how when a prince gets yelled at too much, he says his stomach hurts, and people can't be mean to him.
Yes, he is not doing Orientalism. He is doing a Cuomoism. So from Johnny Baby, he says at a press conference, "Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker."
These were
I bet he does.
These are the
migrant worker.
These are the new lyrics to Smashing Pumpkins today. They've updated them. They've gone woke.
Today I feel gay.
I mean, I've been enjoying watching the start of this World Cup because it's just like just the fact that they let Qatar just host this World Cup, like literally built on the skeletons of, let's see, 6,500 migrant workers from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka have died constructing this World Cup stadium, or just the entire World Cup thing for Qatar. I mean, I was just watching it on TV now, and there was this sort of ad for Qatar where they were like, hey, we're an American military base. Hey, we have exciting medical technology. We're the future. And they show a time lapse of the creation of the World Cup stadium, and it was just like, I'm seeing like a couple thousand people's lives get snuffed out in real time.
Yeah.
Just a sped up version of that.
So Qatar has always had a more sophisticated media operation than any of the other Gulfy countries. Like Kuwait has never really had a terrible one. Kuwait's has always been kind of good. Saudi Arabia's is very blatant. Up until about a few years ago, Saudi Arabia's entire media operation was one news organization, and then paying 20,000 people to scream, "It's an eternal affair" at you if you talk about beheadings on Twitter. But Qatar, you know, they've had the preeminent Middle Eastern media organization, Al Jazeera, a very respected media organization. They've had, for how small of a country they are, they've achieved enormous influence. They're very sophisticated diplomatically. And here they showed a little bit of that sophistication. I think that they've been paying influencers to tell people that it's Orientalist, to criticize the slave tomb World Cup where there are no alcohol sales. I do think that, because I saw a tweet decker, you know, one of those guys who all he ever fucking tweets, all he ever says is like, drinks out of coolers are just better. When you went to school in a school bus, you knew it was going to be a good day. When you had orange juice in the morning, you knew it was good. You know, that type of shit. When a girl double texts you, you know, oh, damn. You know, that type of shit.
Posting a photo of like a plate and knives and being like, how many of y'all remember these? They went crazy.
Yeah. Like a picture of Gushers. Who remembers eating these? I mean, it's never posted about Orientalism or Islam or really anything outside of like deck chairs and, you know, watching Beast Wars, I guess. He said most criticism of Qatar is rooted in Orientalism. And it's like, who fucking gave you that line?
Taught you that word.
Told you that. Yeah. What the fuck, dude? But I've seen a lot of that. And I really do think it's, you know, how cheap is it to buy a tweet decker? You know, it's going to cost nothing.
I do wonder, are there any Americans on the payroll? Like, did they send a helicopter to pick up some like Tumblr person who like bullied a bunch of people in the Steven Universe fan art community into suicide a few years ago?
Oh my god! Yeah,
and they taught him all the lingo.
It has to be like a Tumblr criminal, like someone who has run off Tumblr for causing too many suicides. And that's like America hiring Otto Skorzeny to teach our special forces. it's like an Operation Paperclip for people who killed 30 people in the Steven Universe community.
So if it's not if it's not their like the 6,500 migrant workers who died being enslaved by Qatar for this World Cup. By the way, total death toll is probably significantly higher because as these figures do not include deaths from a number of countries which send large numbers of workers to Qatar, including Philippines and Kenya. Deaths that occurred in the final months of 2020 are also not included.
The records of these people because their countries fucking keep records. It's like the diagram where like the parts of the plane that got shot up are supposed to get all the plating. It's like, no, it's the spots you can't see. So it's like, it's got to be way higher.
Yeah. I mean, Southeast Asian guest workers and guest workers from all over, from African nations, from, you know, usually very poor nations, that's the commonality, are treated horribly all across the Middle East. It's not just Gulfy countries. They're treated awfully in places like Lebanon, in Levant nations, all over. But there seems to be a very feudal institutionalization of the treatment of migrant workers in these Gulf countries. Everyone seems to have the same procedure of, taking people's passports, of making sure they can't leave, and essentially doing everything you can do to make it so that, like, yeah, their deaths aren't even recorded. They were never even really people.
Yeah, it's essentially the ideal form of immigration that any country's ruling class would impose if they could.
Mm-hmm.
And in these countries that have no other class, really, because of the way that the wealth is distributed, they just are able to do that. Like, it's what we're seeing there in Qatar is just, as we've talked about for this entire show's run, the mask falling off, right? Like, instead of having the World Cup in a country that has hyper exploitation, but has kept it really outside the country, right? Because it still has like those working and middle class political, formations that there's people that need to be served one way by the state. And so all the real exploitation is outside of the country, or is not under like the public. It has not been publicly validated. Now in Qatar, at the end of this, where it's like they can just pay to have the fucking World Cup. It's like, yeah, no, you're going to watch slavery be carried out in public, and extend it even to the fucking people in the stands.
Yep.
Because of this horrible, alienating, monstrous World Cup, people don't want to go. And so they're literally importing from these same countries people to watch the games in the stadiums their countries died making. This is like it's capitalism totally detached from any of the human institutions that are supposed to be served. It's supposed to be serving. Like, it's not about sports. What is a fandom? Any of the things that people are supposed to care about, totally non-present. It's just money watching itself, and then literally hiring people to be paid to watch it. Because if there's not a fucking, if there's not some sort of wage relationship, what's the point of being there? And not sports.
This is something I always thought about in about like 2008, 2009, during the Great Recession, was that these Gulfy countries probably had the greatest cash reserve, the greatest collection of liquid assets out of any family, out of any non-corporate entity on Earth, out of any non-hedge fund. But it seemed like in 2007, 2008, it seemed like while they did have influence and they did have some institutional presence and things like, the Council for Foreign Relations, they hadn't really been part of a global monoculture. And I thought, that's so weird, that they have such great wealth and it's so liquid, but they're not really part of this thing yet. When will things get desperate enough that they can buy their way in? And now we're seeing it. Yeah. Right at a time where it feels like we're at the end of something. Every organization, whether it's like, a sports graft organization like FIFA or more governmental bodies, these countries, because of their immense liquid wealth, have been able to buy their way in.
It's like the end of it's the end of capitalism as like a machine powered by like the collective interest of a ruling class. The individual like nodes of capital are so overwhelming now, are so out of proportion to every institution, that they get to dictate independently. So the Qataris get to buy the World Cup. Fucking Elon Musk gets to buy Twitter. And the things this money is supposed to facilitate, sports, communication, are totally obliterated by the individual psychotic interests of this small group of weirdos in the Gulf, or this one psycho in America. And we're just at the point where the system is deteriorating, because even at the top, these things are able to operate independently of any greater interests, socially, that would keep the system going. Like, it's the termites eating into the fucking thing. I mean, and every institution is just being destroyed by them. FIFA, corrupt, disgusting, nobody trusts it. American colleges, to have a little.
Oh my God.
A little segue here.
FanDuel. Caesars.
The University of Wisconsin, brought to you by FanDuel.
Yeah,
with a majoring in gaming, history, and theory, and slot machines in the fucking cafeteria.
Matt, that story genuinely shocked me.
The Harvard Hotel Casino.